Ashley,
Hello.
it's my
Happy
favorite
Friday.
time of the week. It's Freelance Friday, the show where
This
we
is
bring
really your
on a
favorite?
fun. Come
I
on, you're
said, this is
killing the
really your
vibe here.
favorite.
This
I
is
mean,
what I
I'm
live
not,
for. This,
yeah, it's great. I don't know if I'd call it
this
my favorite, but it's definitely fun.
man, starting with a bang. That's like I'm like,
Sorry.
welcome to the World Series, the premier sporting event in the universe. Is it really the best though? Like one of the co-hosts of the show opening
Eh,
up first game. Like, it's good. It's good. It's
it's all
not great.
right.
I don't know if I would say it's
It's
the
okay.
best. So yes, the best show anyone has ever seen. Josh's favorite part of the week, where we unlock all the questions of the universe, at least the creative universe. Freelance Friday.
Woo!
That's how the intro works, Ashley. You don't
Sorry.
second
I'll
guess.
have to practice it next
All right.
time.
Practice not gunning down the show. Oh, I love it. Awesome. Well, yeah, today we've got a good buddy of mine. We were talking about it before the show started. Uh Qualifying your friends. Like he's not an internet friend of mine anymore because we have been in the same room together before at least one
Yeah.
time. So we're regular friends. You and I, however, still internet friends.
Internet friends.
We
Yeah.
haven't crossed that barrier yet. Um, but anyway, his name is Alex Rodriguez. This
Woo!
guy, I have
Hey,
so much respect for him. And watch out, Ashley's about to say. I mean, he's kind of Alex
He's all
Rodriguez.
right.
Like
I mean, he's
he's
okay.
not the most Alex Rodriguez part of my week.
no, I
Uh,
appreciate that. Hyped me up a lot. You definitely hyped me up a lot, but
Yeah.
some
no,
realism.
yeah,
No.
put me in a real light.
I love that.
No, dude.
No, I'm excited to have you on, Alex, for several reasons. One, I respect you and your craft and what you've done in your career. But also and just to give you guys who don't know who Alex is, I first met him while you were working at Bethany in Baton Rouge. And I don't even know if you were like leading the creative team at that point. You might have just been a humble graphic designer working at his local church. But I think
I
you
think
were
I was
new
like
in the
mid
saddle.
pack. Yeah, mid
Yeah.
pack. Still, trying to earn my stripes.
But yeah, and like
Yeah.
since then you have like done some really phenomenal work at Bethany and like really kind of launched them. I know you would not say this about yourself, but I would say you kind of launched them into a different echelon of creativity. And then since then you've worked at Adidas and now you're at BP and Sups, which I had never heard of, but other fitness people are like, Alex has the dream job. Alex is doing Alex is who I wish I was. People have said that.
So,
And so
dude,
there you
that's so
go.
wild.
So,
That's so wild. Thank you for
hey,
having me. Thank you guys for having me.
we got
I
George in the comments. He showed up for his old boy, his little Baton Rouge boy.
Dude, that's wild. People need to stop. I'm not looking at the
He
YouTube
won't.
because I don't want to get self-conscious, but um, I'm super thankful. Anytime someone, so it's kind of odd because like Josh was saying, I'm not necessarily like in the like church space anymore. So anytime someone
Sure.
invites me or anything like that to like chat or like hang out or whatever in like in a podcast, something like
It's like,
that.
oh,
I
Adobe
always
conference. I don't work at
no,
church anymore, guys.
no,
Calm down.
that's not it. I always just like a humbling thought of like it's where I came from and like the part of my career that I feel like was the most formative for my abilities. And I even tell it today to people, just like working in such a high pressure environment of every Sunday, every week, I
Yeah.
think allowed me to like make creative decisions that I don't think I would have had to do before on an agency or like if I was a freelancer. So it just helped me so much. So I don't take it for granted. I'm always super thankful to like talk to anyone about anything creative. So
Heck
thank
yeah.
you guys for having me.
Yeah. No, thanks for
Absolutely.
being here. We're pumped to have you
Well,
here.
you're a solid dude, and that's why one of the reasons I like to brag on you so much is I know you'll never brag on yourself in the same intensity that I might.
Yeah.
And actually, this is not. I know this the rules for this show is we ask one big question each day. We'll get to that in just a second. And but a quick non-question that I'm going to ask you that's not officially the question of the day is you've worked at Adidas. You've
Mhm.
worked as an in-house brand guy, and you've worked on staff at a church. Would you say that the church job was higher pressure?
100%.
Wow.
100%. 100%.
That's crazy.
So, okay.
I think I kind of seen it all in a sense. Like I do feel like I've had a bit of experience in freelance, because when I was at the church, I was doing a lot of freelance. Like I was usually doing like 20 hours on top of my 40 hours a week on freelance during church.
Okay.
So it was self-inflicted in a sense. But I think for like the church specific work was very, very like brain involved, and very like, at least it was for me, because I wanted it to be that. I wanted it to feel intentional, and that I actually
You
was
sweated
pushing.
it. Yeah.
I was looking at it from a place of like, I'm building a brand. I'm not necessarily like, I obviously work for a church and I believe in God and I'm going to be a part, but I am building this brand. The way that it started, I want to be able to like keep pushing it along. And 3.5 years later, like when I left, I felt like I did that. So it was so much harder. And I think when you go like to a big brand like Adidas, I felt like I was a part of like a machine, whereas like, already going, I was just like dumping coal into the fire, and it was great. And it was super like great as far as like work balance, and obviously a lot of talent that I could glean and learn from, but it was not the same cadence as like church. And then now that I'm like in-house and brand side, feels a lot like church in some senses, like, because it is kind of building a brand and like kind of doing it, but it's
travel
not.
a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot more calculated, more strategic, because it's business. So you have to really make business decisions, and not a lot of that is like based on like a feeling, or like we felt like God told us to do this, so we have to do it right now. It's very planned, so it feels a lot more structured and a lot better.
That's a whole separate topic, is like spirit-led churches versus 18-month programmed out churches. Like how much more stress is the graphic designer when, because that's the church that I first worked at, was like pastor in some cases did not know what he was talking about on the drive to Sunday that morning, So how do you build around that? All right. So this is a pretty beautiful segue though into today's talk. Which if you guys have a question or a topic that you'd like us to hit, leave a comment, whether you're live in the stream right now or later if you're rewatching this, because we do look at these and we do take them into account as we're selecting and matchmaking great guests with great topics. But today's topic is how to finish well. And this could be, I'm specifically want to talk about how to finish like a project or like a big push or a creative campaign well. But Alex, I know that you have finished some jobs and seasons of life really well too. So yeah, there we go. Let's get up in the clouds. Let's talk about this puppy.
Well, I guess I want to like hear from you guys, like, because I know like you both are in a freelance capacity.
He just turned the tables on us, Ashley.
Well, no, I want to hear from you first. Let's
okay, all right.
And I'll piggyback on what you say. How about that?
I will go first. I will not be the host. I feel I was thinking about this because we were planning on having this conversation, and I think for me, about any conversation and finishing anything, I always have to think about how I started. Like that to me is the key in it, and then in pretty much the whole conversation. It's like how you start something is going to determine how you finish it. I think a lot of people get burnt out because they start wrong, but then along the way they obviously have to course correct, and they have to like push it across the finish line, and that's why they get burnt out, because you didn't start well, you didn't plan, prepare. So that's always been something that I feel like I've been very intentional about, asking a lot of questions, something that I've learned. I know we're going to talk about some practicals, but that when the topic was, I guess, shared with me, that was something that was like kind of in my mind, of like a lot of creatives don't take the time to really evaluate their start process of like how to create something. They just want to like deliver it, or they want to finish it. And refining that start process, I feel like can maximize your time, maximize your ability to serve more people, maximize your love for what you do, because I think that's such an overlooked part of the creative process is how you start.
Yo,
I think
Yeah.
you're really good at creative process, Josh, and I'm gonna give you that compliment because I feel like the whole like I can never do what you do or you Ash because you both do logos and like icons and that to me is that's a hard thing for me. I can do it, but it's just hard. But I think that dynamic of doing that teaches you a lot about the start because you were just throwing out ideas into this like big, artboard, and then that's part of the start process. I
Mm.
think once you start to refine that, that's when you're going. That's when you start to go somewhere. But when you're just like here in that artboard, just throwing stuff that see what sticks, that to me is just part of the start.
Yeah.
That's did not expect you to go there, but that does make sense. And I think it almost feels like I'm trying to think of like a good analogy of like, once you're way down the field and like you've gotten, we've already done the initial thing. Now we need 17 other looks from it. You're really limited in ideas to pull from for other pieces. Like, okay, what does this look like in this installation? Or, hey, we need something more. If you're pulling from like a shallow depth of like inspiration or story or meaning or like kind of just the richness of the ingredients you're using, you're really hamstringing your ability to keep drawing from that. Because it could just be like, oh, there's the one good idea. Oh, cool. Like Chrome 3D text. Like that looks sick as that one thing. But what's our like story? How does that tie? And Chrome 3D text could be like baller. Like I've done that for an event one time, but like what was the meaning behind it? What's the reason? And if you don't have that stuff that you're bringing to the conversation too, and it's just an aesthetic choice or a like, I don't know, I liked it, it's really hard to like say, what does iteration 2 of that look like? Which is another reason I got super hyped to have you on specifically, Alex, not only so we could say go one more a bunch of times in this conversation as you keep pushing down the road. That's a BPN joke for those of you that don't know Alex intimately and his supplement company that he works at.
When you said that, I was like, cool. I don't know what you're talking about.
Ashley,
awesome.
Go on more.
Ashley's new character.
That's why I got the knuckle tattoos. It's like go one more.
Oh wow!
So he knows.
Okay.
So he doesn't forget to go one more. That's actually this is your new character on the show. Is like just completely crap.
I don't know
at whatever I'm pushing. No, not lost.
I'm glad you're here.
Like
I'm glad you're here.
Slightly negative. That's the so Alex, one of the things that because I know the Freelance Friday is not your best day of the week, and so not your best part of the week. So you're just here. Is you said like just as an example, like a conference for Bethany back in the day, like you guys would tease the look for next year's conference at the last segment of the last day of this year's conference.
Wow.
And that stuck with me. And he would say, like, I want, by the time we fast forward the clock to next year, it to still make sense with this teaser, but it also has like the idea has developed and gone to such a different place that you hold, last day versus teaser up next to each other. And that's 364 days apart.
Yeah.
They live in the same universe, but they are different pieces of art. And like, I was like, dang, not only do you have to like dig deep to do that, but you've got to have some like finishing power and keep having the energy. You got to keep going one more in order to do it. Because what I do, this is my thing. I'll come to a project and say, wow, I'm excited. Boom. Here's the big like concept. Yeah, we'll build out all the pieces. Okay. I'm moving on to the next thing. I'm bored of this. And so like, I'm going to finish the project. I'm going to give you all your stuff. I'm going to do a good job up here. But when it comes to like dreaming up, like deployment number 4 of this thing, like that's where I lose gas in the tank, if you will.
Yeah. I think the concept behind that has always like kind of been what has carried me in my creative career, I think so far, is that I don't ever feel like I don't compartmentalize my work in a sense. Like I don't like to feel like it is because I'm always pulling from something I did yesterday, today, and then today I'm pulling tomorrow. So that concept is always part of the process. And I think that's like with the concept of like finishing. I personally don't feel like I'm never finished. Like it's something that I've discussed in like, you know, other podcasts or like with friends and creative, that you really, if you have that mindset that your work is always like you put it here, and then the next day you pick it up, bring it here, and then you pick it up and you bring it here, then you're never done with it. There obviously you have like, you know, projects that you're doing, but you're bringing elements from what you did before. So if you start to, it's a mindset shift of like, if every piece of work that I do is a continuation of the work I did yesterday, then it is always evolving and it is always iterating and is always changing. And I think that's why I loved the side of building a brand as opposed to like working in house at Adidas was different because it was already established and we were iterating and doing things, but like it was just like very established. But like when you're building a brand, you're like, you do this much to today and then you build it and then you do the next bit and you keep doing that and you keep doing that. And it still feels like you said, you know, 360 days could go by and it still feels like it's there and it's the same, but it's constantly evolving. And I think once we get into practicals, like there's so many things you can do to practically like evoke the same design decision from yesterday today in a different way, whether it's color or font or placement or whatever. It all is going forward, and it carries so much more weight and momentum if you do that, as opposed to just this localized hit where it's like, oh, we did this campaign, it was this localized hit, okay, good, see you later. Like if this campaign today has something from like something that's ownable, something that's familiar to the eye, something that's familiar to the consumer. Obviously now I'm in a brand, so that's kind of the mindset. But if you're in a church or if you're a freelancer, you're creating your look. That's what it is basically. You and I think you both obviously have done that really well, where it's the same colors or the same color palette or similar, or the same like themes of like, you know, layout or composition. They're there and they tell the story of who you are as a designer, and it's constantly evolving and constantly going forward. So it's never done. It might be finished today, but tomorrow I have more to do.
That's interesting because like when you say that, I think about that in like two different ways. So like me as a freelancer, so like so for instance, I'll have like a list of projects, and I work better if I compartmentalize those projects. So it's like I'll start on this one and I won't work on anything else until I'm done with that project. Like I don't like starting something and leaving it and then going back to it. However, like there are some times where there's campaigns where like obviously it's ongoing. So it is a different part of the brain. I feel like it's a little, I don't know. It almost feels like it's I don't know. You have like more attachment to it, I guess, or more. It's like you're growing something, like you're planting a seed and you're kind of growing it versus like the plant, you plant it, it grows overnight and then you harvest it the next day. You know what I mean? Like it's a different.
And then you send it off to someone else, right? So that's like, it is not easier. Obviously, you're still proud of your work and you want to like own it.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to detach because it's like I'm getting paid. It's a transaction. I feel proud of what I did. Obviously, client always wins. See you later. I think there is a level of like owning it, like where you do feel proud of like what you do, and there's things that I mean, just very like mindless things that we do as designers that are already like telling of that desire to like own your work. Like for example, the way your artboard is set up, like on your computer, the way you start it, like we go back to the conversation of the way you start, like it's already set up the way for you to start in a good way, to put your best foot forward. It's already set up that way because that's how you work best. So that you might have like on my Photoshop for years, I've had like different color palettes for different things, and I have them in folders for like things I've done for campaigns, and they are there kind of telling the story of like the brands that I've been able to like help and build. So I think subconsciously we crave that desire of like, we want to see our work represented, and we want to see our desire to like push brands forward, push people forward. But
it almost creates some more meaning to the to the work when you're like seeing you're staying with it long enough to see the fruit come from it. That's cool. I think it's a big encouragement to people on staff or on like in a brand role like yourself, like I see a lot of them pining for like, oh, I wish I was full-time freelance. Oh, I wish I could get out of here. I wish I wasn't stuck working on this same stuff all the time. But like, there's a really like rich kind of opportunity going, like thinking through. That's a great perspective.
Yeah. And I think like for the encouragement of like freelancers, everyone, like you can do two things at the same time. You can serve the client and give them what they want, but you can also create something that looks like you. Like you have to identify what are those things in as a designer, as a creative, that someone can look at work and say, oh, you know, Ash did that, or hey, Brian Cole did that. Like that's already a thing. Like I can confidently say, I know that people say that about you both work. I know that people say that about mine, you know, however you want to say it, but like I just, there's certain things, is just like your stamp. It's like your
sure,
I don't know, your
it's the
aesthetic.
sauce. It's the sauce.
It's the sauce.
And here on Freelance Fridays, we hold on to the term freelancer very loosely.
Okay.
So this is not necessarily a show in service of just freelancers or just freelance guests. It just ended up being the alliteration and common thread between us when we started the show. But yeah, we definitely do have like a mix of folks on the show, people who are fans of Ash or church folks or freelancers or agency people. It's all over the place.
It's a sauce.
It's a sauce. Yeah.
Yep.
Ash, that's so interesting. I hadn't thought about like, there actually, I want to ask you, like, if you could pick, Pierce says A-Rod sauce is the best sauce. Agreed. We're all chasing Alex. I mean, like I look at this stuff like Alex is a stereotypical like breaking Instagram guy, because he won't post for 2 months and then post one thing and it's just like the coolest thing I've ever seen, and it just blows up, and it's like, this is sick, and like it's stuff that makes me go, I don't know how he did that. Like I don't know how to start figuring out the thing that he did, which it's a lot of times you can deconstruct. I was trying to find the one lettering piece you did for the CrossFit girl. It was so sick.
Oh, it's
anyway,
at the
Ashley,
top, I think. Wait, no, go down. It's in that carousel with the Go One More, the G1M that has the Chrome letters.
Oh, this one.
There's like,
this is gnarly. Like even if that's just flat and it doesn't have the chrome on it, like that's so nice. That's cool. And so different. So Ashley, if you were if you could like literally pick your dream scenario, if we're going to talk about, you're a farmer, you're spending time seeing it through the whole cycle, growing the crops, versus, you know, a chef selling a one-time dish at a restaurant, which gives you more fulfillment? Let's say Alex is a farmer, Josh is a chef. Not better or worse, just like which one is like yeah, that feels nice to me.
I love checking things off my to-do list. So I think like a job like getting a piece done and then it being approved and being utilized too, because it's discouraging. Like if I say I create like some merch or something and it's like approved and everything, and then like the band doesn't use it, that like Overtime doesn't use it, that's a bummer for me. But I love like creating the product, the client is excited about the product or the design, and then they utilize it. Like that's probably my favorite over long-term campaigns. However, campaigns are definitely more fruitful as far as like financially, like for sure, like the campaigns I work on definitely, you know, pay the bills more so than the one-time things. But usually the one-time things are projects I'm more excited about too. You know,
more
what I mean?
Fulfilling
like,
a little bit,
and just more fun, like more fun things to do. You know.
Yeah. That's.
What about you?
Oh, I'm 1,000% a restaurant. I'm a restaurant, not a farmer. And I learned this about myself probably pretty definitively like 2 years ago, when I was like, I'm going to die if I say yes to one more project. I got to change something. And the change that I ended up making was, I love logos and I love giving people my best and like showing up so hard for a big strategic moment in their organization, and then like give them the keys to go run with it. And I do get a lot of fulfillment out of like, you know, start finish, check off the box kind of thing you're talking about, and following the steps in there. Whereas Alex is, talking about like living the brand and thinking about, but what are we setting ourselves up for 2 years from now, kind of thing, in today's
he's a
Instagram
marathon
reel.
runner.
A marathon runner. You got to go one more.
He's a marathon runner. We're a sprinter. Like, if it's like, you know what I mean? Like, he's in for the long run, but like get there and be done.
The first person to leave a comment at the end of the episode that actually counts how many times I say go one more, email me. I'll give you a free anything out of my shop.
Nice. Nice. I'm going
to try and cram go one more as many times as possible.
That analogy was like perfect for like why I left Adidas. Like, a lot of people didn't really like understand like why. They were like, why would you do that and then go do this? Because BPN, in a sense, when I joined BPN last year, there was only 12 employees. Now we're at 40. So it's starting to pick up momentum and some speed. But like when I came in, like, even to this day, still kind of consider a startup company.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were like, why would you do that? And I think my main answer has always been like, what I really loved, or I feel like what I wanted to do was to build something.
Yeah.
I wanted to feel like I was building something from small to big, and I can like
versus
look back and say,
sustaining it.
Yeah.
Like, build it versus sustaining. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like, I think that's where like the concept of finishing is kind of like, well, I don't know what the end is. Like, for me, like, we have like clear like deadlines, and we finish a project and we finish a campaign, and I know how to do that well because it's hinging on the business. But the concept of finishing to me is very like, I don't know that I'll ever be finished. I just want to make sure that I'm constantly pushing it forward. Like, finishing means that you pushing forward. So I'm like, as long as there's forward momentum, I feel like I'll finish eventually. But right now, I don't know what that looks like. You know?
See, this is how you know when you found a good person, because they're just talking. Alex is just saying like his approach, and it's like, wow, that's so good. Like, Alex is like staying in the race. Anyway, that's it's just such an odd, interesting thing, and like I think that for you, like, Adidas, everybody's like, oh, dream gig, like that's so cool, like that's got to feel great to have that attached to your email address, or it roll up in your resume or your LinkedIn profile or whatever. And it is like, it's a cool like feather in the hat. But I think we were even talking about it before you got there, and I was like, are you going to feel so constricted, or like, is it super like a ton of red tape in those circumstances where you're just checking off boxes, and like, unless you're like heading up creative, you're a commodity, like you're there to block and tackle and like resize stuff. And I think that you were able to impact mixed. A good bit of that.
It was a healthy mix. I think I had the best experience ever. And like, it's kind of weird because it's like this weird like balance of like, I feel like it was the best job I've ever had. But at the same time, I knew myself, and I knew that as a creative, I was not gonna thrive there eventually. I mean, I was there for 9 months, so it's not like I was there like 2 months. I was there 9 months, and my boss was amazing. My team was amazing. I mean, there was like 30 designers on our team, and
you got a promotion in that 9 months.
Yeah, I got a promotion, and it was just like, and they had like a clear path of like, they had talked to me like, hey, we see that you're doing this, you're doing that. And I felt really valued, which sucks to say, but like, I didn't ever feel like that at the church. So
that's tough.
It was easy to like transition and feel like this, like, oh, I feel like I'm doing it. But like deep down, like you have to know yourself of like, what fuels me. And like the Adidas opportunity kind of gave me a lot more like insight to how to be more of like a creative director, which that's kind of what I'm doing now in a sense, more so. So it felt like it was the right move and the right transition, but it wasn't like anything that I felt like people, questioned me and were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I just feel like I need to go do this in Austin and move to Austin. So I did.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that so much, because like how you said, like, I liked what you said about how with this, what's the new brand, BPN? Is that what it's called? how it's kind of like you're building it from the ground up. And because that's exciting too, because I guess that's kind of the other side of like the marathon thing. I did, like, when I worked for an agency, this was in 2013 through like 2015. It was a startup at the time, and it blew up. Like we worked on like productions, so like movies. So we worked with 20th Century Fox, Disney Princess. Like it was fun, but it was a startup, and it was exciting because, again, I was like I think I was the 10th hire, and then by the time I left, it was like 200 employees. So it was like really cool to see it grow. And then they actually sold it.
That's a lot of growth.
Yeah, and then they actually sold it to another, like a big major company. Like they got bought out, but I got pregnant at the time, so I was like, peace, I gotta go. But so like it worked out for me. But like I can see what you're saying, like being there from the roots of something and building that and growing like with a team. Like there's something so like fulfilling in that too. Like that is fun. Like I did enjoy that, and even just the camaraderie of that and everything. So yeah, that is fun. And it's like working for, like you said, like when you worked for Adidas, like how it gave you so much like grounding for like your experience now. Like working for that agency taught me so much of even how to working for different Christian agencies and stuff like that throughout the years. I've never worked for a church, but just working in ministry, just it teaches you, I don't know, like the basics and like the professionalism, I guess you could say, like even how to name files correctly. Like I learned that from that agency, like doing stuff like that. So I don't know, I think it's important to experience that.
It's so much like practical stuff, like showing up to a pitch with a deck and be able to explain all your work and why you decided this versus that. Like those are things that like a lot of creatives have never experienced, and it's not a lack of like, it's ignorance in not a negative way. It's just like no one really talks about that. Like everyone's nowadays, which is such a blessing that there's so many resources out there to like learn on your own. There's some skills that you just learn on the field that you won't like get out of a YouTube video. Like if you're in a pitch with like 10 people and you're like, you are the one that has the deck and you have to go through it and say, hey, this is all we did, this is why we did it, and then people asking you questions. Like a lot of creatives nowadays don't have that experience. So I think that corporate experience, I feel like, has been so key for me because at the church level, I kind of had the freedom to do whatever I wanted. And I'm super blessed by that. Our pastor was like super like trusting and like, do whatever you want. As long as it wasn't crazy. But I was always blessed by that. But then when I went to Adidas, it was like, hey, like we have a pitch and you have the deck and you have to prepare it and you have to convince all these people that this is the right decision. So it was a good like boot camp. I feel like those 9 months for me were like kind of like a boot camp of like, okay, can I show up to an agency model and like really like,
am I a real boy?
Like, basically, and then now being on this side, I feel like kind of going back to like, I can make decisions. Like I have the trust from our boss to make decisions and like kind of stir the brand. But I feel like now I have the understanding of the other side of like, not everything is just because it's cool. Some stuff has to be planned. Some stuff has
business
to be
sense. Yeah. And I honestly, I think some of those limitations or requirements make it more interesting. Like when you say, like when you have some of those like hurdles to walk through, I think it's Jack White that's got the famous line about, if I know I need to walk 15 feet across stage, to go from guitar to piano, I'm going to bring a 10-foot cord because the things that make life interesting is that like tension between like, what do we do with the challenge here? But also to your point about like church life versus agency life, I wish, again, we have a primarily like ministry based audience. Like I wish that everybody could get the experience of both. Because like my first job was at a church and I really cannot think of possibly a better first graphic design job than a church, because every month you've got new stuff that has to get done. And if you're terrible in learning, like I was, like, oh, well, that one was bad, throw it away. Nobody thinks about it the next month,
Yeah. And so it's very predictable too.
Yeah, like there's a cadence to it, and I learned like the basics of like print stuff, and like I don't mess with print a whole lot, but you got to touch a lot of things in a low risk environment. And like still learn how to like talk to people, manage people. And then you go over to agency world where it's more that like show your work, make the money make sense, touching a bunch of different, I mean, I think you can get that handle from either job, like touching a bunch of different disciplines. Because like that was the thing, I came out of agency world, started doing Bright Goal stuff, and I was like, everybody knows Photoshop. Like, why do we not know how to do some of these other things? And you know, and it's just because like if that's all that you've been steeped in, and this again, like to your point, is not saying you're less than or anything like that. It's just like, dang, if this is all you see and this is how you grew up, then why would you have these other tools in your tool belt? Like there's no practical application for it day in and day out.
And,
so, like,
and it's all the unseen stuff, right? That like it's not sexy, it's not fun. Like putting together a deck on InDesign is the most
the worst
mundane worst thing I ever do. But I got, you know, coming out of that, like I was saying, like now at BPN, like when I'm delivering like a lot of stuff where it's like a lot of graphics, a deck is almost like I need to have that so the person that I'm delivering this to knows exactly what I'm delivering, and there's visibility to people, so there's accountability, so that if someone on another department doesn't feel like I'm doing enough work, hey, here's the deck, look at all these assets that I delivered, and no one can like dispute it. So those are things that I feel like, again, you know, bringing it back to the topic, like finishing well, like what are those processes for you? Like, you know, when you're at that point, like how you finish. Because now for me, like when I finish something, I have to have a deck. You would ask me like 2 years ago, I'll be like, I don't need a deck. Like I'll just send all the files in a folder.
You just email it to the guy. Yeah.
It'll be organized and it'll be like, you know, categorized, like, you know, banner, whatever. But like having a visual of everything also gives you the sense of like, I put in the work and I thought about this. Seeing it all like next to each other holistically, like gives you so much more than you can imagine. And a lot of people like just want to ship the project. Just like, okay, here's a folder, the zip files. And like,
I'm all done. Goodbye.
Now that I see you put together decks, I've seen them because we work together on some stuff, but like, I know that like for me, when I'm putting together a deck, because it's kind of the last thing I do, I'm able to like almost do a final check of everything. Like almost like, hey, here's everything. And now I can sleep sound and I can deliver it. So yeah.
All right, so we're getting it. I don't like this view. We're too much too close together. It's too much. All right, so this is a perfect segue though for our project wrap up checklist. So we've talked up in the clouds. We've been talking about like theory and principle and like your approach, but I want to go through like what things you're doing as you wrap up a project, what that looks like. And like, you know, whether it's like really practical steps or the why or the benefit, like just kind of get down into the weeds a little bit more. And what to your point about like making the deck, I think one of the ones that I would serve up is regardless of how detailed your process is, you've got to have a process. And the times that I've seen things get really squirrely is when there's no defined like finish line. And not to say, you know, we're not going to go one more and like see the brand all the way through to like the fruition, do the farming thing we talked about earlier. But more of like, hey, this campaign is done. Like my piece of it is done, hand off the assets to the other person. So I've got stuff, you know, like I know I've got to deliver a certain set of files in a certain format. And if I don't have a piece of that, I know I'm not finished yet. And so like you were saying just a second ago, like it's a good check off there. And like sometimes I'll catch things as I'm going through mock-ups or as I'm like testing out all the color variations. Like it might have worked over here in concept, but now that I'm putting it in a presentation, I'm like, oh, that brown actually is useless. Like, why is it in the conversation? Let's swap it out with another color. And so that it helps you in a variety of ways. But that's just one of mine, is follow a process.
Yeah.
Ash, your turn.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna, say kind of similar. Like I'm definitely not, because again, I've worked with Josh as well. Like I'm definitely not as detailed as far as like what you deliver at the end, as far as assets and the whole, you know, deck and everything. Mine's more basic, but I guess it depends on the client. like what we're working on, and I guess also like even like a price point. Like if it's like a major project, like I'm going to put in the extra time and I'm going to make sure that everything, I mean, I always make sure everything is good to go, but I'm saying like, I'll give the extra like mock-ups and colors and all that stuff. But if it's like something real basic, or I give them the file, I guess. I don't know. Like, but I guess that's one place that I struggle is I don't really have like a process. And we've talked about this in the past, Josh, like when I worked with you at that agency, like the checklist you would have, like as far as doing branding, I was like, whoa, like this is like so much more detailed than what
this guy's so sweaty. Why are we doing?
And I'm like, what is all this process? Why do we have all this? No, but it worked. It was good. But like, I'm just, my brain doesn't work that way. Like I'm not like, I like see a project and like, I don't think about it until I'm working on it. And then once I'm working on it, I'm in it and I'll finish it till the end. Like I don't have like a process of like, I don't know. So
that's interesting.
I don't have like a specific process of how I like will output files other than obviously the basics of like, hey, they need this type of file. They need it to be transparent, whatever, depending on the project. But I don't have like a specific, you know, like.
Well, again, it depends on the scale of project we're talking about. It's like, like I'll just share my folder here, and I do get a little neurotic about like this level here. Like everything's like organized by client name and then project, but like it's a mess in here. Like there's, you know, mood meeting notes, like all like this could be crazy or, you know, whatever it needs to be. And then some of these are like
so really messy in there. Oh my gosh. Like literally that looks like, it's like perfectly organized. Mine's like,
oh, no. You should see like the actual like art boards or like sometimes
show us. Do the preview so we can see what you got.
All right, let's do this thing.
The people are getting a first look.
Getting
behind the
inside
scenes.
that. Okay.
What's wrong with your computer?
We're loading, guys. Gotta blow in the back of it or something. Get the dust out. But like what I was getting at is like I know that I've got my logos, my fonts folder. I've got a brand guide in every single one of them, and I have these brand guides somewhat templatized so that you know, once you get in here, and this is the kind of stuff like I actually swapped out the colors on this one because I said, oh, that color is too good not to use. Got to like rope it in. And I know that if it doesn't work in one of these situations, like I got to go back and change something. And also I know, okay, this is what I normally do. Like I'm trying to be consistent here and like give people a consistent quote unquote product. And if I'm like skimping on somebody, like this is a pretty evident thing. Now it's different. I know there's a certain scope to a logo project. Actually versus like if somebody hires you for a social post or a t-shirt design, like you don't, but I always will have that export folder and that's the clean one. That's the one that's tidied up and I send that to the client. So I can have mess, crazy working files in the other one. And I promise I will show that to you if I can figure out
for sure. I definitely will send them clean files or I'll send things outputted correctly and all that. I guess my thing
the sausage is made here.
Oh, that's cool.
See, so this is it. This is for me. This is what I'd love to be able to do more of because I can't. This is hard for me, but this is so beautiful. See, your work is great.
Well, I don't know what you're saying exactly, but like I had another designer, but he says like, bro, when you make a sandwich, do you like what does your kitchen look like? Because like I bring in all my notes, so they're like living close to the art board.
Yeah,
and then. Usually my first step, I know this is the episode about finishing well, but usually my first step, we'll talk about starting, is like I'll just type out the name or the words in a bunch of different fonts that have the right like emotion to them or like kind of tone. And then sometimes I'll work through rough sketches. I didn't really need that for this one, and I'll have them.
I cannot believe they're using pickleball as a logo. That is so wild to me.
They wanted like Tyler the Creator had a country club, like so they wanted like some crests and some things. They're like, what's fresh? What's different than a golf club?
That's cool.
Another thing I'll do is I'll have like boilerplate text either from their website or the brief, and I'll like style it in here too next to it. And there you go. So that's Josh's messy world, and then I'll pull it over into a presentation thing that's cleaner. And a little bit more like polished up for presentation, like you're saying. But I know that there's always going to be like I've got to hit these things in order for me to finish.
I guess one thing I will add on to like how I like finish a project is I did want to say this, like not necessarily like I think a lot of like we're talking about as far as like is, you know, tidying up the files or sending those or whatever. One thing I do make sure to do when I finish a project or how I finish well is I always make sure that the client is like, hey, are you good? Like there's communication. Like I always am like closing it out with communication. Like, hey, like let me know if you have any questions at all. Cause I know like just working in through customer service of owning businesses throughout the years and stuff, like people don't like, because we see it as one way because like we're in this designer brain and we know how these files work and all this stuff. But like on the other side, like the user, they don't know, like they have so many like questions or there's things maybe they don't even know. So like I always like to keep an open-ended conversation of like, hey, here's your files. However, if you have any questions or you need any other files in the future, even if it's next year, like I always keep your stuff, like just contact me and let me know if you need anything else. Like I always want to make sure that there's like a bridge there, like it ends well. Like, you know what I mean? Like the conversation ends good. That's, I don't know. That's it.
That's good. I didn't know. I never did it. I never had to do it, but I know someone that they added basically this thing where like the last email they would send would be like, almost like, hey, I sent you all the files, send all the files in there. Here's everything you requested. You have till the end of the week to let me know if there's anything that needs to be changed immediately or that it's missing. Because what they were saying, one of my friends said, what I don't like is having moved on to another project and next week I'm like focused in this other thing and then like someone else like, hey, you forgot this, or hey, you did this. Because I think there is a level of like the client is always right till the end, but I think at some point it's like there has to be almost like a transition of like, hey, now it's your responsibility. Now it's not I did what you asked of me. If you need anything else, if you have an extra deliverable or whatever, you have until this day because I have other things that I got to do. You don't have to explain all of that to them, but like I think just setting those boundaries of like, hey, if you hit me up next week, I might not be able to like supply what you need because it's
that's
past
interesting. It's interesting you say that because like how your friend said that, like for me, I don't think I would ever say that just because I feel like them contacting me, even if it is an annoyance to me, I feel like that's building almost a relationship there where they feel like they can trust me and be like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like 6 months from now, I totally forgot to get such and such from you. And obviously, like, unless it's a complete redesign or something, that's different. But I'm saying like, if the project we are working on, they remember, oh, shoot, I need such and such. I'm always like, yeah, for sure. I'm happy to give that to you because I want to make sure that they feel comfortable coming back to me. Like, I don't want them to feel like almost like later down the line, it would be like a burden, like almost saying, hey, like after this week, like, let me know by the end of the week if you need anything else. If not, like, cause then if I was like the consumer, I'd feel like, well, maybe I shouldn't reach out to her again. And then I would almost feel uncomfortable reaching out, asking a question. You know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure that relationship, the relationship with the client is stronger than me being annoyed that I have to send them something later. You know what I mean?
Would you charge them more money for the extra work that you're putting in the following week or 2 weeks?
No, depending on what it is. Like if they're asking me just to send something from the previous, like maybe I forgot to send them a PDF or whatever they need, I would never charge them for that. If they're asking me, like for instance, there's an instance of this girl I'm working with right now in some branding. So we did a bunch of different concepts throughout the summer and she was happy with everything. And then just the other day she reached out and said, hey, I think I actually have another idea. Can we do this? And I'm like, hey, yeah, but that's like a completely new, like we already finished it. Like, but she wants this now. So she changed her mind. And I'm like, no, I have to charge you for that because this is an entirely new project. So it just depends on what it is. Yeah, she was totally cool. She's like, oh yeah, I totally understand. Like it was fine. But I think, but that is because
you just want to see you go one more. Is it like?
No. Like
she's like, I don't want to go. She'll go 10 more.
Just whatever. But no, you know what I mean? Like I'm
1,000% in on this, Ashley. Like I think that the end of a project is your perfect time to have a sales pitch for the next project. And I'm not saying you're like, hey, and if you need anything else, like hire me again, please. Like it is you starting with really good feelings. Yeah. And then you end a project with really good feelings. Because a lot of times for me anyway, I'm an affordable, good quality, slow boy. And so like in order for me to do what I do in the way that it's structured and stuff, like it usually people are like, Josh, this took a long time. And I'm like, but do you love it? And hopefully the answer is yes. And it really is kind of what I've hung my hat on, is like, okay, once you've got it, and once we're wrapping this puppy up, like the customer service level and the quality of the product make up for it taking a little minute.
Right.
I think that makes sense. I think it's it's like the customer service side of like being.
It just depends on how you're structured too. Like, I get where that guy's coming from, but I think it's a missed opportunity.
The thing I think, like, as far as like being like a freelancer, like I think of myself almost as like a brand. So like, not only are they buying the product I deliver, like my style or whatever, they're also buying into me as a person. So if I'm going to be like if I'm going to be like a B word to them, they're not going to want to work with me again. You know what I mean? Like they want to feel like they can come back to me and like, hey, like she was super nice. Like she's very helpful, like customer service wise. Like, I don't know.
There are talented designers, and I mean, any industry, like talented craftsmen that you feel bad about asking questions or having an opinion or asking for like, hey, I'm confused, or this is broken, or did you mean to do this? It looks wrong. Is that okay? Like I always, at every step in the process, I go out of my way to like make sure that people feel okay saying they're unhappy about something. That way I can fix it rather than them just go away and be unhappy. And I want to do a good job.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think the experience that I think she was like sharing about was like in a sense of like getting a final, like, yes, everything is delivered. Everything is good as of now. Because I think that's something that can be left up to interpretation. They'd be like, yeah, I love it. And then they come back next week like, hey, never mind. And I think
it also depends on
an exchange of like, hey, is this everything
we
agreed?
Yeah.
Are you good? Are we done? And I think getting that, I think in a sense is important, because you don't want to just like have 15 clients that might come back next week and say, hey, I need this extra thing.
Yeah. I guess I think that, but then I think that goes back to the start is having like that communication of, hey, this is what I'm going to deliver. Like I'll categorize that in the invoice. Like I'm sending you 3 looks. And, you know, I usually don't specify revisions, but if there is, like, if they want that specified, I will. But like having that open conversation so that, like, if they do, like, so say for instance, that girl came back and said, hey, I want this other look. We already have that relationship established where I can say like, hey, like, that's awesome. But like, this is going to take me so-and-so hours. So I need to charge you more. And she feels comfortable. Like, oh yeah, she knows I'm not taking advantage of her because we've already established like this working client friendship in a sense. Like, because I would be interested.
Good clients don't want to like take advantage of you. Like they want the good work, and like they don't know sometimes what's hard and what's not, or what's difficult. And to your point, Alex, like I think it depends a lot on the squishiness of the project. With you know, somebody comes in the front door of Bright Coal, like they've seen my website, they know about what you get out of, like there's 7 examples on the website of like, this is what this type of logo means. So they know what they're getting, and it's pretty clear. Like, but like websites are a different one, depending on how you structure that, or those types of projects where it's like, yeah, we had an idea for an extra page while we were mid process. It's unclear if you guys are doing that later, if this is phase 2, if this is rolled into the main thing.
Yeah.
And like, oh, what about this? Or, hey, I looked it up on my 17-year-old iPad and this thing's broken. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like those types of things you have to define it. And there's different ways of doing that. So yeah, I'm not saying that your friend is crazy by any stretch. It's just
she might be.
Like,
I'm interested to see with your friend when she does that, how many of those clients actually come back and work on another project, or if they feel comfortable with that. You know what I mean? Like I guess I don't know.
I mean, I had like this situation. Her worst nightmare happened the other day where a client that we took a while on the logo. They kept kind of pivoting, and I said, hey, at this point, like I've already kind of gone above and beyond the scope we've defined. We got to tack on a little bit more for some extra stuff. Like, yeah, absolutely, man. We want to cover your time. Like, thank you. So super cool. We went through that process, nailed down the final look. And then I got an email or a phone call. It was like, hey, actually I'm looking at this thing and like this and this and this about it. And like I could, and again, they offered to pay more. And I was like, no, like let's do some customer service here. And like, it wasn't anything crazy either, but that's the type of stuff where depending on how hard of a line you draw there with the wrong person, like if somebody's again, trying to push you around and they're not a healthy relationship,
Yeah.
Like, yes, that's different than this person who is offering to pay and like understands where, like what they're asking. Super different deal. Dustin's actually got a question down here. Do you control the deadline or do they set it typically? And so, Alex, this is an interesting one for you being in-house. Cause like, yeah, you've got a boss, but you're also kind of running the creative marketing show at some level, right? Like you're kind of setting some of the schedules yourself.
Well, we have a CMO, so I work with him a lot, and like kind of together we're like, hey, let's talk about
He's the numbers,
and
you're the
he's more strategy, and I'm kind of more of like, hey, like practically we can pull this off because I have the knowledge of scope of what our team's doing. I think I don't think there's a right answer. I think this is kind of the same conversation, like kind of what we just having with Ash and you about how you want to deal with customers or clients. But I think that as a designer or as a freelancer, you are aware of your ability, your schedule, your capacity, your life, and you should be able to give the client not a dead I don't like the word deadline, but like hey, I can get this done by this date based on like all those things, like your capacity, your workload, you have a family, you have a trip planned, all these different things. You should be able to do that. Obviously, they are going to have their deadline, so you have to take that into account. And I think that's where you kind of have to do some customer service and say, well, if they want it 5 days before, that I can do it like 5 days later. Am I willing to sacrifice something in my life to accommodate them? But I think you do have to be aware of like you first. I personally, I feel like that's how you protect yourself. It's like if you keep bending to the deadlines of clients, especially in a freelance setting. I think in a brand business is such a different conversation, but if it's a freelancer client relationship, you have to protect yourself, because you can start saying yes to everything, and then now you're going to become the designer that never delivers on anything.
And that's I mean, one, it kind of ties in with one of those, like, you got to put on your big boy, big girl pants and say, like, learn how to back up the design you're talking about. And also like learn yourself and know what you can handle and what you can't handle. And it is your responsibility, not theirs, to make sure you're not overloaded or you're not putting yourself in a bind. This is a little pro tip that I sneaky learned a while back. And again, going back to start of a project, we're gonna have to rename this episode, or at least go one more to cover the end of it. But one thing that I've started to do is, so we're like, and get to know each other, like talk about the project conversation. And I said, we're not getting off this phone until we talk about timeline, because it bites me in the butt every time we do. It just happened to me this morning. I was sending somebody a text. I was like, realized we didn't set a timeline, but, so I'll make a point to talk about it, and I will say, they'll invariably say, how long does this take? And I will say, what external factors do we need to be thinking about? Like, I'll kind of beat them to the punch and say, like, tell me about your world. Like, in some cases it's hey, the church is doing a 25th anniversary, like, big bash thing. We really, really need this to go in conjunction with that. Like, that's the perfect time to have that conversation with our community. And I was like, yeah, totally makes sense. When is that? Okay, cool. What if it's within this date range? Like, that should be fine. Here's the things that could get that off the rails, and kind of walk them through best and worst case scenarios. If I'm doing a really good job that day, I'll do that. But usually it is, in order to hit that deadline, if it's really tight, like, we'll need a rush fee. And then you'll find out, like, again, put the question back in there. She's like, is this really a deadline for you guys? Or, is that just like a like to? And then they'll say, oh, how long does it normally take? And then I'll give them my answer. Like, once I get these things from you, it usually takes about this long-ish. And like, how does that feel for you guys? And that way they have a chance to react to it. And you're not saying, I don't ship anything in less than these dates. Nor are you just like, they throw out an arbitrary date and you're like, oh, I'm going to lose this if I don't say yes to this. Like, make it a conversation, I guess, is the short way of what I'm saying. Like, don't turn it similar to, sometimes money is that way, depending on how you scope out projects. Like, just have an honest conversation about it and kind of move things on and off the table until everybody feels like it makes sense. And that's so that's where we'll kind of like come together. And you know, a lot of times people will say like, hey, I don't need this until next spring, but we want to go ahead and start working on it.
Yeah.
Or other people say, I've never worked with a designer before, I need this logo in 2 weeks, so we're not going to do it. And so like you just you work with a whole bunch of different types of folks. You want to have answers for everybody, and opening it up to being a more loose conversation is super helpful.
Yeah, I think one last thing I would add is like, I said this the other day in one of our team meetings, and it was a joke, but like someone had assigned something that was in Asana assigned to me, and I had already done it, but the deadline was not till Friday, so I did not mark it as complete, and I did not deliver anything until Friday. And they were like, "Are you done with it? Like, whatever." I think it was like a topic, and I was like, "Yeah, I did it." And they're like, "Why didn't you send it?" I was like, "Because I'm in control of my bandwidth. I want to make sure that no one else feels like they can start estimating the time it takes me to do something, like, uh, you know, for an email or for whatever. Some days I might be faster because I'm focused. Some days I might have had a bad night and I didn't get enough sleep, and I come in and I have a headache, and it's going to take me all day to do one thing. So I need to be in control of my bandwidth within reason, right? Because obviously I'm not just going to sit here and be like inconsiderate to everyone else. But if there's already a clear expectation set, then I don't need to feel the pressure to deliver early. I don't need to feel the pressure to have this like complete. If I'm going to deliver on what we promised, then it'll be delivered, and that's all you need to worry about. Because that's a part of the other conversation we can have for days of like, how long does it take you to design something? You're not paying me for my time, you're paying me for my abilities. So if I finish something in an hour and I feel really good, but we said the deadline is like 2 weeks from now, that doesn't concern you. Like, you're gonna get what you paid for. Like, whatever I do with the rest of my time is up to me. But I think those are conversations that a lot of people don't want to have, and they're a little, crass. They're a little like hard to have, but they're like honest conversations of like, as designers, as creatives, like, we don't work like a finance guy. We don't work like an accountant. We don't work. It's different. So you can't just like assume that because I designed something in 2 hours today is the same amount it's going to take me tomorrow.
That's an interesting conversation, even to have maybe on a different episode, is talking about working with different clients with being paid hourly versus like contract pricing. I had a conversation with my friend the other day, and we were talking about how, like, especially when you've been doing this for so long, you might work really fast. And I feel like I don't like being paid hourly because I work super fast. But like you said, Alex, like, so I like, if they give me a 2-week timeline, I'll just, my personality, more than likely, I'm going to wait till probably the last 2 days to do that, but I will get it done and I'll do it fast. And it's usually, most of the time it comes out good, sometimes not. But like, for the most part, like I will deliver a good product and I do it quickly, but I don't like to be penalized and be paid for an hour of work when somebody else, another designer, it could take them 6 to 7 hours just because of my experience. You know what I mean? So that's an interesting conversation too, to have eventually, is like Josh is, we can even talk about, like,
I like that,
people like versus hourly versus contract pricing. Like, I'd rather just be paid a base price and I know that I'm going to get it done in time.
And it messes with, not only it's like, it doesn't affect someone on the outside, right? Like, it's such a, that's you to deal with your expectations, someone else, like your client, but also messes with you internally, because then you start to doubt your abilities, because you're like, I know I can finish in 2 hours, but someone outside of here, somewhere else, is making me feel like I need to spend a whole week on this project, when I know for a fact I can spend an hour on this and it's going to be the best work I can give you, because I know my abilities. But someone somewhere else, like, no, you have to spend like a week for it to be like the best. And it's like, no, like, I know what I can do, and I know you're not paying me for my hour, you're paying me for my ability. So it is interesting because it starts to affect your confidence. And I've seen it in my life, like, where someone like will make me feel like, if you don't spend the full week I paid you for on this, then it's not good enough. And I'm like, I could do it in 2 days just as good as I could have do it in a week.
And I think it depends on the person, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, like, just again, working with you on these branding projects at that agency, Like you like to work on things long and slow. Like that you work better that way, right? Like no, like not in a bad way, but I'm just saying like you work better that way, right?
Yeah, I would say I'm probably a mix between what you're talking about. Like there's an element of me, like I've got a set number of projects that I'm going to push hard on during 1 week.
Yeah.
And so I might like dabble and like sketch and like I've done all my preliminary work. I've got all the ingredients on the table. Like I do all that stuff before I ever hit like go mode. But once I'm in that zone, like I'll pick it up and put it down a couple times during the week, but I am pretty like consumed with like a handful of big things that I'm pushing through in 1 week. And so, yeah, I don't normally do stuff in one sitting. I did kind of do that this week, which felt very odd to like take a project from like 10% to final file shipped in a pretty like tight amount of time. And it was just because I devoted like a lot of the concentrated time to it.
Yeah. You know what's funny?
So yeah.
I just want to say a confession again, going back to that agency, we worked together on some branding. I remember one of the projects, I don't even remember what church it was for, but you're like, yeah, you have like, I don't know. You said like, it was like an exorbitant amount of time. It was like 6 weeks or something like that. And I was like, cool. In the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm not going to work on this until the week is due. And then even like one time you're like, hey, how's this going? I'm like, good. And then like, literally I did it like that week, like the last
confessions.
Week. I'm like,
I love this.
But I mean, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't as
that should
good
be a new segment of the show is confessions.
No,
all right, so
it's the worst. I mean, yeah, we could go in this rabbit hole. Like,
yeah, I won't like rush things unless I absolutely have to. Like I love working under the, I mean, I don't love it. Actually, I don't love working under the gun, but I work best under the gun.
That's me too. I'm the exact same way. I don't know if it's, and I'll tell on myself here, like I don't spend the full 6 weeks working on the thing, and I haven't, you know, at risk of all of my favorite clients listening in on this episode here, like in order for it, let's put it this way, in order for me to do business and to function and charge the rates that I charge, I have to guarantee there's a line of people out the door. And so like, there's no point where like you come in and like ring the bell at Bright Coal and you're like, hey, I've got nothing going on. I'm ready to work on your thing completely right now. Because if I did, I'd be broke and I'd have to go get another job.
Well, I think a lot of the times, like where you're trying to, like what people need to understand is like, you have to have confidence in the product, not the process. Like how I do whatever I do, like that's up to me. But the product is what I'm trying to sell you on, but also like the confidence that you're going to have. So obviously you have examples on your website. Ash has examples on her Instagram, on her website. So like that's the product. The product, it speaks for itself. Don't worry about how I get there. If I'm selling you the product, I will get there how I feel like I can get there best. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want him to feel duped either. Like, wait, all he does is he's got a bunch of guys on Fiverr that he like farms this stuff out to, or he like does AI art to like, that's good. Okay, here's your invoice, you know, like that could be our world one day.
Brand, because like you obviously part of building your brand is showing the process. So I think there's things that you can do to like show and have the confidence in people and the trust that they like are getting the quality product they're paying for. But I think I've come across, and I'm sure every freelancer probably has come across with at least one client that wants to have like that monopoly over like how you spend the time or the money they're paying you for. And it's like, I think at the beginning there is a sense of like, hey, you have to earn your stripes, and I'm so thankful for that, like to be able to like say, hey, I'm gonna spend an hour or two on this and I'm gonna earn my money. But I think you do
can't
get to a
sassy
point,
until you're way too busy. That's when you're allowed to.
Right. But then also like you get endurance and you learn how to focus and use your energy, and the thing that took you 2 hours now might take you 10 minutes or 20 minutes. So the time changes. So you have to evolve with it. You can't just like get stuck in like, oh, I'm getting paid for hourly for the next like week, you know, unless you're working in-house.
Yeah. And to your point about like paying for the end product, I have to remind myself that when I like hire people to do like trade jobs like my house, like I had a guy, like I could not figure out this thing under the sink with the water filter system. I was finally like, yo, dog, like please just come please fix this. And he gave me a quote and I was like, I don't do this for a living. I have no idea how much I feel like I'm getting slightly taken advantage of. But then I've looked at it from the other angle of like, how much would I pay to stop thinking about and worrying about and talking about this situation? I'm good with that number. And then homie upcharges me $50 while he's on the way over and then is there for like an hour and a half. And I'm like, you got paid real well for that, especially with me helping you. But that's neither here nor there. We're not going to get bitter on this. This is the best part of the week, Ashley, and we're not going to sour it with Josh's relationship with contractors at the house.
Hey, you know what? I know this is the best part of the week, but I have to leave.
I hate that for you, but I could even go one more.
Yeah, you guys have a great Freelance Friday, but I have to go because my kiddos are leaving with my parents. But it was good talking to you, Alex.
Adios.
Bye, Ash.
All right, see ya.
Well, we're here.
I think
that's it.
It's been great. Chuck down here, we'll take this last one and then we'll wrap it up. Chuck says, once you earn your stripes, your process is up to you. That is absolutely a good one to end on. And like, I think that your process and you get made through like going through that trial of like doing it the wrong way 100 times and then like tweaking stuff and just keep, like you were saying at the top of the show, like you approach your relationship with the brand at like BPN and whatever organization you're part of, you're not thinking about like, well, when am I done trying? When am I done growing? The same thing is true for yourself and your career, whether it's you really care about your art style or landing more clients or the success of your business, whatever it is, there is no finish line for a lot of these things. And we do need to enter and exit seasons or phases or projects well. I think that's, the right thing to do. It honors God. And it's important for us to like hold up our end of all these bargains. But in the same breath, like, in a lot of ways, there is no finish line, and so like just keep after it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think there's no finish line, but there are responsibilities that you have to do to keep going forward. If you want to keep going forward, if you want to keep having that forward momentum, there are responsibilities on your plate that you have to take care of. But if you start looking at them more of a responsibility or opportunity versus a finish, I feel like that is a lot better in the long run because you're building on what came before, so
that's good. Alex, this has been a fantastic episode. I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on. I knew it was going to be great. If no other reason, my goal with these shows is to just have guests on that I want to talk to for an hour and a half if nobody else wants to listen or show up or care about it. Like I get some fulfillment out of it. And
we need to start throwing these on a podcast.
Yeah, so
for the folks that don't want to watch it on YouTube.
Not to leak sneaky secrets, but we have a check mark that once we hit it, we're going to release a podcast version as well. So people can listen in the gym, or there is a way to like basically have that same experience with YouTube if you want to go through the effort of doing that. But yeah, we've also kicked around having Ashley live design in the guest's style during the episode. So like while we're here, she's doing wish.com Alex Rodriguez art on the live on screen for us, which would give another like dynamic to the live episode or the visual episode, I should say.
Then you can use the art as the album cover for the podcast.
See, my man's tracking with me. That's what I was thinking. But man, where can people find you? What's the best way to contact Alex Rodriguez and get his personal cell phone number so they can start texting you?
Well, I don't know about that, but if you want to come follow along, my Instagram is at
A-Rod.
Yeah, it's 3 A's, 2 D's, A-Rod. I've had it for years. I'm never gonna change it. My email is on there. I think on mobile there's an email button. I'm always down to chat. I try to do as much as I can to like, if people want to. That's another podcast I was in. So.
I thought it was your curated. You be throwing up some curated Spotify lessons regularly.
I do throw a lot of recs. But if you want to chat, you can DM me. You can email me if you can find the email button. I'm always down to talk about creative stuff and and see what I can do to help or throw out ideas.
I love it, man. This has been awesome. You have a great rest of the week, guys. Until next week, peace out, and hope that y'all someone has counted how many Go One Mores I said in this episode. And also, if you have a topic or guest that you would like to see on future episodes, leave a comment down below. Do all the YouTube things so that we can climb the charts and I can quit my day job and just be a full-time YouTube
Podcaster.
video host. Like,
you could
smash
get a
that
podcast
like
deal.
button, subscribe.
You're gonna get a podcast deal for millions.
Hey, go work at Vox or Pushkin or whatever the other like big groups that have like 80 podcasts built into them.
Yeah.
Anyway, love y'all. Peace.